Maya said it like a prayer and a sentence. Think about how you treat my brother. Then the bedroom door clicked, and I was left with a couch too narrow for a spine and a blanket that smelled faintly of detergent and distance. My name is Adrian Cole, 37, supervisor at Briar Tech Systems, east side of Columbus. That night I lay on my own couch with my clothes in a pile on the floor like I was a guest who had stayed too long. I did what she asked. I thought about Tyler. I thought about the 8 months I'd paid his phone bill so he could keep looking for work. The Saturday mornings I filled a grocery cart for 3 and watched him eat like there was no receipt attached. The sink stacked with pans, fossilized with sauce, waiting me out. The tools vanished from my garage and never wandering home. The truck taken without a text, returning with an empty tank and new scratches that no one could explain. A year and 3 months, not visiting living, a spare bedroom turned into a command center, double monitors glowing, cables like vines, energy drinks lining the baseboard, his shirts in small avalanches, his assumptions settling into the studs. We just had the kind of conversation that ruins the rest of the day. After dinner, numbers on paper, my voice even, overtime cut, her clinic hours thin, the extra weight of one adult who made no deposits, only withdrawals. We need a plan, I said, utilities, groceries, or other arrangements. Tyler laughed, like I'd told a joke we could all love. Other arrangements? This is family, man. Maya folded her arms around him with a look. You're being unreasonable. The rough patch, she said, as if rough could stretch forever if you called it love. The house fell quiet. Upstairs, Tyler's TV murmured. My TV. I stared at the ceiling where a hairline crack ran like a river on a map. I traced it with my eyes and tried to measure when exactly home had shifted from shelter to test. My chest felt heavy but calm, like weather deciding to change. I ran the inventory again, slower, like checking a patient's vitals. Savings thinning. Respect thinning faster. The way Maya's voice, once soft on hard topics, had turned to sandpaper whenever I named a boundary. My own patience, worn to threads. How I'd treated Tyler. Like kin. Like the Midwest says to. Coat off. Plate full. We'll figure it out. I gave him a key and every benefit of the doubt. Somehow that made me the problem. At 3:12 a.m. I stood up and made coffee I didn't need. Steam rose like a small sermon. The kitchen clock ticked without judgment. On the table sat the budget sheets, still open like a wound. I touched the corner of the paper and felt something precise settle in me. Not anger, alignment, the kind that doesn't slam doors, the kind that changes locks. I looked around. Couch, TV, table, my things, my name on each bill, and me, exiled to the living room for asking a grown man to act grown. The quiet kept talking. I started listening. Maya and I had 6 years of a marriage. We built the ordinary way, paychecks and shared calendars, a dented stockpot from her abuela, the ritual of Sunday laundry. 4 years ago we signed papers on a modest 3-bedroom on the east side of Columbus. Not a dream, but ours. Fresh paint, humble grass, a maple that shook its hands at every storm. We learned its sounds, the winter hum of the furnace, the soft tread of neighbors on early shifts. I learned how the light crossed the kitchen tile at 7:10 a.m., right when the coffee finished, right when we were still on the same page. Then January came, like a cousin who doesn't knock. Tyler arrived with 2 duffels and a story. 29. Cleveland, breakup. Just a few weeks. He stood in our doorway in a coat too thin for Ohio. Embarrassment rehearsed into a grin. Family, Maya said, and the word opened the spare room like a key. I agreed because my mother raised me to stack chairs after dinners that weren't mine. You help, you pour, you make room. At first, the house absorbed him the way houses do. An extra bowl in the sink, an extra voice in the hallway. I told myself the economy was tight, and pride makes the job hunt slower. I remembered my brother, Simon, when his marriage split. He crashed on my couch 6 weeks, paid for groceries without being asked, and left the place tidier than when he arrived. That memory put a warm gloss on our decision. It gave me a story to believe. By the 3rd month, the gloss thinned. The few weeks floated into the ceiling like a balloon we pretended we could still reach. I suggested leads. Warehouses off Alum Creek, a bakery on Main that needed early hands, a temp agency that never slept. Tyler always had a reason. Too far, too early, not enough for his resume. He said the word fit a lot, as if work were a soulmate. By month 6, I spoke plainly. Timelines, a little for utilities, a little for groceries. He nodded while gaming notifications pulsed across his phone. He nodded as if agreement were currency. Nothing changed. The house started to carry new weights. The heat nudged high because he was home all day. Both monitors glowing, the electric bill learning a new number. Our grocery list doubled, then doubled again in small ways. Extra cereal, the good coffee, sauces I didn't recognize. I found my drill gone, then the level, then the extension cord I preferred. The truck came back with scratches that hadn't been there in the morning. I noticed I was noticing. Maya defended him with a softness that used to be mine. The job market, she said. Depression, she whispered. A promising application, she hoped. I wanted to believe her. Belief stretches like taffy when you call it love. But the days did what days do. They told the truth. Quietly, repeatedly. Corrosion never arrives like thunder. It arrives as a half-degree warmer thermostat and a light you forgot to turn off. Except you didn't. It arrives as a grocery receipt with small curiosities, imported ramen, the good coffee in the bigger bag, energy drinks with neon names, until the register sighs and posts a number that used to be 200 and now is something else. I watched our bills gather new zeros the way trees gather quiet snow. Utilities almost doubled. The house felt busier even when I was alone, screens murmuring, chargers glowing, the fridge cycling more often, the hum of a console left running like an aquarium filter. 1,000 small whirs, paid for in my name. I tried to talk through it, the Midwestern way. Start soft, bring a spreadsheet, leave room for pride. Maybe Tyler can spot the electric this month. I told Maya, rinsing plates that were not mine. She placed the dish towel down like a judge, setting a file aside. He's family, she said, and you're being petty. The word petty landed like a thumb on my forehead. I swallowed it and tried again another night, aiming for chores instead of dollars. Could he at least handle trash and dishes? Take the weight off you. She exhaled, long and practiced. He's having a hard time, Adrian. Please stop making this about you. The first time I found takeout charges on my credit card, I wondered if I had tapped the wrong app. $46, then $62. A pattern, not a slip. When I asked Tyler, he shrugged like math was weather. Thought it was the shared account. Must have clicked the wrong card. My bad. He said my bad, the way some people say grace automatic, eyes already on dessert. I brought it to Maya gently. She stood with her arms crossed, a posture that had become a second language. It's an honest mistake, she said, and turned the conversation toward my tone. Tone, not facts. I noticed that shift. Once, she argued with me across the problem. Lately, she argued me into being the problem. Tools kept disappearing, pilgrimaging into the spare room where they lost their names. First the drill, then my level, then the socket set that had belonged to my father. The truck came home empty on gas and heavier on scratches. Little white crescents along the bed like bitten nails. Where'd those come from? I asked. Not sure, Tyler said, thumbs busy. Somehow each mark asked me to compromise my eyesight. People talk about boundaries, like fences. I used to picture them as chalk lines on asphalt, temporary, fair, easily redrawn. Turns out, boundaries are closer to bones. You don't notice them until something breaks, and then it's all you can think about. I began counting silences. The way Maya's yes used to be a full light. And now, it was a dimmer switch turned low, the way she stopped reaching for my hand in the grocery line, the way laughter took the long way around our house. I kept trying. Another calm talk, another budget sheet, another attempt to name the water we were swimming in. Each time, Maya polished the same two ideas: loyalty to family and my supposed smallness. I started to understand. Love without limits is not kindness. It is erosion with better PR. By the time the next bill arrived, the one with a number that made my stomach do its own subtraction, I realized I was no longer negotiating for fairness. I was negotiating for air. At 3 in the morning, the house wears its truest face. No polite noise, no cover music, just the refrigerator stitching a small seam of sound and the furnace exhaling like a tired animal. I lay there on the couch and felt the shape of my own breath. A thin blanket tried to make me smaller. The crack in the ceiling was a river still. I traced it and finally asked the right question. If I were a stranger walking into this room, what would I tell the man on the couch to do? The answer arrived plain and Midwestern, like a neighbor with a casserole. Stop arguing with what has already told you its name. I slid out from the blanket and stood. The carpet held a memory of our last Christmas. Pine needles. I never fully vacuumed. A faint sugar smell nobody would notice but me. The kitchen light made a quiet coin on the floor. I brewed coffee not because I needed it, but because the ritual steadies the hands. Scoop, pour, click. The red eye on the machine blinked awake, and steam gave the small room its own weather. I sat at the table with the budget papers and finally admitted that the real deficit wasn't money. It was consent. I had been consenting to a smaller life. People like me are trained on compromise. You shovel a stranger's sidewalk when it snows. You wave a car through the four-way stop even when you had it first. You call it kindness to stand in the cold a little longer because someone else forgot their coat. But there is a difference between generosity and self-erasure. I could feel the line now, clean as a ruler. I could feel the bruise where I'd been crossing it. I took a pen and formed a list, not of complaints, but of verbs. Call my manager at 7 a.m. and take a personal day. Pull my credit report. Open the emergency account I'd been feeding in quiet drips. Tour 2 apartments. Price movers if necessary. Photograph my tools. Box the things that carry my name before they carry my regret. Not anger, not revenge. Movement. A strange peace rose as I wrote. The kind that doesn't spike your voice or fasten your jaw. The kind that removes your fingerprints from every argument and lays them on a doorknob. I thought of my mother's advice from years ago when I told her I loved a woman who loved her family like a flag. Good, she said, but don't confuse love with letting someone edit you. I had let myself be edited down to a couch, down to a yes that didn't sound like me. Upstairs, Tyler's TV cut from action to ad, then back again. The house threw those colors on the walls like cheap fireworks. I looked at them and felt nothing but a measurable end. If a boundary is a bone, mine had set. The next part was simple mechanics. Stand, dress, decide. I rinsed my mug, wiped the counter, and turned off the kitchen light. In the dark, the list in my pocket felt warm, like a key I'd finally remembered was mine. Morning put its pale hand on the kitchen window and found us where nights like this always leave people at the table that knows too much. I was already dressed. Coffee made fresh at a sane hour this time. Maya came in with her work bag and a face chosen for efficiency, her hair pinned back the way she does when she wants the world to slide off her shoulders. She checked the machine, then turned to me, a crease between her brows. "You left it on all night," she said, as if that were the harm. "I made a fresh pot at 3:30, I answered. "Couldn't sleep." Her jaw softened, a brief spring. "About last night," she began, voice careful as a surgeon. "I've been thinking about what you said, about how you treat my brother." She waited for my apology to arrive on cue, but I'd sent it home. "I'm taking a personal day," I said. "We need to have a real conversation about this situation." The softness evaporated. What kind of conversation? The kind where we decide if this marriage still works for both of us. She set her mug down too hard. A brown ring leapt onto the counter. Are you seriously threatening divorce because I defended my brother? The master 7 Doc 10s. I'm not threatening anything, I said. I'm asking why a grown man living in our home can't be asked to contribute or follow a timeline without me becoming the villain. You knew he was in a rough patch when he moved in, she said. You agreed to help for a few weeks. It's been over a year, Maya. And the rough patch looks like 12 hours of video games and takeout on my card. That was a mistake, she said, arms folding into their new country. He's applying. The market's awful. When was his last interview? I asked. Silence sat down with us. I let it speak. Or the last application he actually submitted? I pressed. More silence, the honest kind. The kind that looks at its shoes. He's been using my truck without asking, I went on, and bringing it back empty. He borrowed $500 from Leo and never paid it back. Those things don't become my faults when I name them. Maya's voice chilled. So what, Adrian? We kick him out? Put him on the street? No, I said. We treat him like an adult. Timeline, expectations, a date where his independence matters as much as our marriage. No, you want me to choose, she said, almost triumphant, as if catching me in a trap. Between you and my brother. The words didn't flinch me this time. They were only a light turned on. Yeah, I said quietly. I guess I do. Well. She stared, as if the room had tilted. Then the bag went onto her shoulder like armor. I'm going to work, she said. When I get home, I expect you to be more supportive of my family. The door clicked shut, sharp as a metronome. In the driveway, her car backed out one firm line, leaving. Upstairs, Tyler's alarm wailed, then stopped, then wailed again. Snooze, snooze, snooze. A chorus for how we'd been living. I rinsed my cup, wiped the coffee ring from the counter, and felt something unclench. The day was new, but the decision was already old. It had just learned my name. I pulled the shoebox of paperwork from the hall closet, the way you pull a thorn, slow, deliberate, already tired of the pain. I spread statements on the table like a map of a country we no longer admitted visiting. Numbers are honest in a way people aren't. They don't negotiate. They point. I sorted months into stacks, utilities first. The electric had learned a new language, double vowels, double cost. The winter bill looked like it had swallowed a flashlight. Heat up 2 degrees, screens on around the clock, a console that never slept. The meter had kept score while we told ourselves stories. Groceries, once 200, now north of 4, and not because we'd started serving dinner to the neighborhood. The bank's pie chart, cheerful and unforgiving, painted our spending in harmless colors that still felt like warnings. I ran the totals and watched the line climb. 63%. That's what the house cost us since Tyler moved in. Not a roommate, but a riptide. I breathed out through my teeth. The room felt warmer, or maybe I was finally noticing the temperature I'd been paying for. Then I went looking for the leak I felt in my chest. The joint account showed cash withdrawals scattered like breadcrumbs. 800 in March, 600 in May, 500 last month. Each had a caption. Baby shower gift. Cash-only car repair. Helping a friend. The captions were neat. The pattern was neater. The dates hugged rent day, utility day, the days I'd mentioned tightening belts and Maya had kissed my temple, murmuring that we were a team. I scrolled back further. More breadcrumbs. Smaller numbers. Same handwriting. A year-long drizzle I hadn't stepped into because I trusted the umbrella of us. A quiet shame rose how easy it is to be generous with your own blindfold. My mother's voice again, softer this time. Don't let love make you sloppy with yourself. The phone lit with Maya's name. For a second I considered letting it ring. But hiding is a luxury for people without spreadsheets. I've been thinking about this morning, she said. We both said things we didn't mean. Did we? I asked, measuring my tone like medicine. Maya, how much money have you given Tyler? Silence, the kind that tries to find a lie it can live with. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but the sentence had a limp. I read the dates, the amounts, the captions. I didn't put heat on it. The facts were hot enough. Another silence, shorter than, maybe 3,000, over the whole time. 3,000 sat in my ear like a stone. Not the number alone, the arithmetic of it. The choices, the hiddenness. The nights I'd picked up extra shifts while she picked up cash. The work boots I stretched for another month while someone else ordered takeout on my card and called it an oops. He needed help, she said, voice shrinking. Real help. So did I said, surprising myself with the steadiness. I needed a partner who told me the truth. On the table, the statements didn't blink. The refrigerator stitched its small seam of sound. Somewhere upstairs, in a room I paid to light and heat, a screen kept glowing for a man who didn't glow for anyone. Trust, I learned in that moment, is also a bill. When it's past due, it collects interest you can't afford. I'll be home at 6, Maya said at last. We should talk properly. Maybe, I said, but the numbers already have. Copperfield Gardens looked like every quiet promise I'd ever postponed. Brick buildings with patient windows, a courtyard stitched with winter grass, a blue mailbox that hadn't given up on letters. At 2 in the afternoon, the leasing office smelled like lemon cleaner and printed paper. A radio murmured oldies. The property manager, a woman with a cardigan the color of oatmeal, slid a folder across the desk and asked if I wanted to sleep on it. I didn't. I had done enough sleeping on couches and choices. I used the emergency fund I'd been feeding in discreet teaspoons for years, the discipline you learn when you grow up on coupons and we'll see next payday. People call it a rainy day account. Nobody tells you the rain can be invisible and still soak everything. I signed. First month, deposit. A key that felt heavier than it looked. The relief wasn't a shout. It was a coat taken off after a long day. The unit itself was small enough to know by heart in a minute. Hardwood with honest scuffs. A kitchen window, facing the courtyard where a maple kept its posture even in February. The kind of silence that isn't empty but available. I stood there with the manager, nodding as she explained trash days and laundry codes. And I knew the important part. This was a room where the only mess would be mine. Back home, I packed without ceremony. Clothes first, folded on the bed with the efficiency you give to things that no longer need a story. My tools went into labeled bins: drill, bits, level. The socket set my father used when he showed me how to tighten what wobbles. The laptop, a lamp, 2 framed photos I wasn't willing to debate with myself about. I moved like a man on a job site. Measure, lift, carry, don't overthink. At 4:30, Tyler wandered into the hallway, blinking like the light had surprised him. He leaned on the doorframe and watched me shoulder a small dresser. Moving furniture around? He said, a grin half-formed, like we were co-conspirators. Something like that, I said. Need help? It was so out of character I almost looked for a second Tyler behind him. No thanks. He shrugged, the universal punctuation for a man who never meant to participate, and drifted kitchenward. The microwave door chirped. The house did what it always did, gave him heat, light, leftovers. On the 3rd trip to the new place, I stopped at an office supply store and bought a stack of note cards. Back in our kitchen, I wrote what needed writing without lacquer or thorns. Maya, I'm done being treated like a guest in my own home. I'm done having my boundaries dismissed and our money moved like it doesn't belong to both of us. You chose your brother. I'm choosing myself. Don't contact me until you're ready to talk honestly about what happened. Adrian. I propped the card against the coffee maker, the altar of our mornings, so it would be the first thing she saw. When I carried the last box to the truck, Mrs. Patterson from next door was watering the stubborn fern she babies through winter. 70 if a day, cardigan buttoned wrong at the top, eyes that miss nothing. "Everything all right, Adrian?" she asked. "Just making some changes," I said. She studied the boxes, then me. "Change is how people tell the truth," she said. "Holler if you need a hand." "Holler, I will," I lied kindly. She patted my arm, the benediction of a small town hidden inside a city. I drove to the new place and unloaded in one sweep. One lamp on, one plate washed, one chair by the window, a room that answered only to my key. I stood in the quiet and felt my name fit again. At 6:30 the courtyard light flicked on like a low moon. I ate a sandwich over the sink, then sat at the little table facing the maple. No upstairs TV. No footsteps that didn't belong to me. The refrigerator hummed a single faithful note. I could hear my own bite, my own swallow. I didn't realize how many sounds at the house had been. About negotiation, the thermostat pleading, the microwave pleading, my voice pleading. Here, the quiet wasn't an argument I was losing. It was space. I let it widen my ribs. My phone jittered across the table, texts stacked like flyers under a wiper blade. I turned it face down, not out of cruelty, but mercy. There are moments when answering is a way of stepping backward. I rinsed the plate. I set my only mug on the counter like a small flag. Later, I lay on the mattress with the window cracked and listened to the city's second-hand lullabies. A distant siren smoothing out, a train thinking about it, someone laughing 3 buildings over. Sleep came not as escape, but as a room that had been waiting for me to arrive with a key. On the 3rd morning I had coffee with the window open wide enough to let in the smell of damp leaves. I wrote a short list on a sticky note, call the internet company, pick up a shower curtain, buy a second towel, and felt a gentle pride that none of it involved convincing anyone to be decent. At noon, a knock. I opened the door to find Maya, eyes swollen in the way grief makes them, hands clasped like a child reciting courage. "Please," she said, not yet breathing my name. "We need to talk." "We can talk here," I said, standing in the doorway. The maple moved. The courtyard made its patient shapes. I did not step aside. "Can I come in?" she asked. "No," she swallowed. "Tyler's gone." "Good for Tyler," I said, and heard how flat it landed. I didn't dress it up. "You don't understand," she rushed. "He packed last night. No note, no call. He's not answering anyone. And," she stopped like a car that sees a deer, "the mortgage. Without your income, I'm behind. They said I've got 30 days to get current." "I'm sorry," I said. And I was. In the human way, you're sorry when someone finally meets the cost of their wish. "I know I messed up," she said, voice crumbling. "I should have told you about the cash. We can fix this. We can do counseling. Just come home." "How much did you give him, really?" I asked. She looked past me into the small square of my new life. "About 5,000, she said. "And he took everything. What I gave him. My grandmother's ring. The necklace you bought me. It's all gone." The irony sat between us like a chair nobody wanted to claim. The man we'd protected had stolen the last of what she believed in. I felt something like pity. I did not mistake it for obligation. "I am home," I said. "You know what I mean," she whispered. "Please. If love can't breathe where boundaries live," I said gently, "it isn't love. It's appetite." Her face collapsed into tears. The old reflex rose in me, closed the distance, fixed the brake, absorbed the blame. I let it pass. "No," I said, steady. "I'm not coming back. Not to that." She stood a long moment, holding the door frame like it might vote for her. Then she nodded once, small as a paper cut, and walked away. I closed the door. The quiet held, the maple kept its posture. I made another cup of coffee and sat with the sound it made. My life, no louder than necessary. After she left the hallway, I stood with my hand on the knob and let the cold metal teach me the lesson again. Decisions feel harsh when you make them, and humane when you keep them. I made a second cup of coffee, I barely drank, and opened my laptop. Consequences, it turns out, look like tabs. I emailed HR to update my address. I removed Maya from my emergency contacts and added Simon. I changed passwords, turned off auto payments tied to the old house, canceled the streaming service that kept Tyler company at 2 a.m. I called the bank to separate what still could be separated without a court order. My voice sounded like someone else's, calm, efficient, almost bored with its own competence. Grief can be like that, a quiet worker that organizes your drawers while you cry. At lunch, I drove back to the house with 2 empty bins and a list. I texted first, coming by to collect the rest of my things, and parked on the street because the driveway felt like a memory I didn't want to wrinkle. Maya wasn't home. The porch smelled like old rain. Mrs. Patterson lifted a hand from her fern. Inside, the air had that stale warmth of a space that had been busy with arguing. I moved quickly. Books, a sweater my mother knit, the framed picture from Hocking Hills, a trail ribboned behind us, both of us sunburned and hopeful. I left the wedding album where it sat, not because I wanted to forget, but because some pages belong to the person who needs them most. In the garage, I found my father's socket set, miraculously present, and slid it into my bin like a rescued animal. 2 more tools surfaced under a tarp, and I took pictures of what was missing without counting aloud. In the kitchen, I saw my note still propped against the coffee maker. The sight turned me into both author and reader. I didn't touch it. Before I left, I wrote a second, shorter card, plain and almost businesslike. Maya, take the couch and dining set, keep the TV. I'll reimburse you for half the washer when we settle the paperwork. Please have your attorney contact mine. I'll email you their information tonight. It felt cold and adult and exactly right. Parting without spectacle is still parting. I locked the door behind me and slid the key under the mat. Later I would ask a locksmith to change the rest. On the porch, Mrs. Patterson watched me hug the bins to my chest like cumbersome children. Hard days, she said. They're honest, I answered. Back at the apartment, I put the rescued things away and let the room meet them. The socket set on the closet shelf, the Hocking Hills photo face down in a drawer until it learns how to look at me kindly. I sat on the floor with my back to the bed and let the sorrow come like weather, no tantrum, just gray sky and a steady rain. I didn't fight it. If love is ever to be real again, it will want a clean field. Boundaries are not the opposite of love. They are the fence that keeps it from wandering into traffic. 6 months is enough time for a season to change its mind about you. I learned the new aisles at the hardware store in Reynoldsburg and the names of the clerks who keep extra blades under the counter. On a Saturday, Leo, Maya's cousin, with the kind eyes and the unlucky stories, caught my sleeve near the paint tints. Adrian, he said, as if trying the word for dense. We did the small talk first. Weather, overtime returning in drips. Then he glanced down the aisle the way people do before they deliver news they can't carry home. I heard about you and Maya, he said. Yeah. He scratched the back of his neck. For what it's worth, I never understood why she kept giving Tyler so much rope. Guy could lasso a whole family with it. He shifted then. You heard from him? I shook my head. Leo's mouth twisted. He disappeared after he cleaned her out. Turns out he owed my sister $800 from 2 years back. Uncle Ron, $300. Aunt Nell, just until Friday, so many times Friday lost its meaning. He exhaled. He's like a storm that doesn't water anything. The picture arranged itself without my help. Generosity used like a siphon. Love as the credit line no one closed. We leaned on a display of drop cloths and let the silence say the things that never survive conversation. How's Maya? I asked at last. He looked at his shoes. Lost the house last month. Renting a room from Julie on the west side. Double shifts between the clinic and a pharmacy. She keeps asking if anyone's heard from you. His voice was careful, as if each syllable had a sharp edge. She says she's sorry, doesn't know how to say it to you. I nodded. I hope she builds a life that can't be stolen. It wasn't bitterness. It was a wish I had earned. Back at my apartment, The maple was leafed out, green like forgiveness you don't owe anyone. I cooked for myself without hurrying, learned a pasta sauce that tastes like patience, met the neighbor down the hall who waters her succulents on Tuesdays, walked at dusk when the city lets its shoulders fall. On Sundays, I called my mother and told her the true parts. She listened the way she always has. A bench offered, not advice. Sometimes I stand at the window with coffee and think about the word family, how it can be a porch light or a funnel, how the difference is boundaries, the quiet fence that says what comes in and what stays out. People call walking away selfish. I've started to call it faithful to the part of you that's supposed to live your life. Love without a boundary is appetite. Respect is the table where love can sit and eat. I still carry grief like a coin in my pocket. I still dream about the old house, how the furnace sounded in winter, the maple out front throwing shadows on the snow. But morning comes, and I take a deep breath, and my life answers to my name. Some lessons charge full price. You pay it once, and then you live differently. That's the whole point.